Welcome back viewers, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries and anyone with ears or other sound detection organs. Hope you enjoy. We are continuing with Going Native, written by Uncle Sealing. Going Native, Chapter 47. I can't thank you enough for doing this for me. Stace's voice was a little choked up, husky with emotion. It's no problem. This is your shop too, at least it will be once you're up and running again. Samuel dug through a drawer and pulled out a handful of small files and rasps, handing them to Iing. The Shilvati dutifully put them on a cart, taking a moment to wipe his hands clean fastidiously. Stace had seemed so taken with the idea of helping out that Samuel knew he had to strike while the proverbial iron was hot. To that end, he had picked up Stace the day after the hot tub session and brought him up to the observatory so he could pick out some tools to borrow. There would be time for a full tour later, once they figured out how to get Stace's motorized wheelchair into the car. Iing and Sam hadn't been able to lift it, so they had left it back at the hotel. Now Stace was in a regular old-fashioned wheelchair, slowly and carefully scooting around the room while Iing sorted and piled up the loaner tools. What sort of work are you looking to do? Samuel grabbed a pile of wet-dry sandpaper and added it to the cart. As long as it made his new friend happy, Samuel would throw in whatever Stace wanted. The guy needed the help and, honestly, so did Sam. There was too much to do around here. Something small. Stace held up his right arm, showing off the trembling. He reached over with his left and steadied it. I need to practice, build up strength and control. It's good physical therapy. Stace looked over the assorted tools. Do you have any gravers? Samuel shook his head. No, but I can make you some. Just tell me the angles you want. That got a grin from the man in the wheelchair. I can make the handles. Mallet. Carving knives. Samuel dutifully added them to the cart. There was a perplexed look on Stace's face as he rolled up to a table loaded with small rectangles of purplish metal. I keep seeing this stuff. What is it? It's shill metal. They use it for damn near everything. It's what we pulled out of Ellora. Ian chimed in proudly. It's really interesting stuff, actually. Samuel picked up a couple pieces and snagged a file from the cart of loaner tools. With one stroke he dug into one piece, filing a deep triangular gouge with ease. He tried to do the same with the other piece and it skated off with a chatter, not even leaving a scratch. Stace held out his hand and Samuel dutifully handed them over. While Stace compared the two pieces, Samuel continued. It's a steel-based alloy with some really unusual additives. Highly corrosion-resistant, almost infinitely recyclable, and incredibly versatile. Cool it slowly enough and it's softer than mild steel, very easy to work with. Almost aluminum soft. Various heat treatments can radically change the properties from there. Basically anything from mild steel to structural steel to tungsten carbide or beyond, depending on the atmospheric chemistry and temperatures you heat treat it to. You figured this out yourself, didn't you? Stace pointed at the pile of regular little rectangles. Heat treat coupons. You've been experimenting? Sam was impressed. The guy was sharp. Samuel grinned. Of course. Sammy's not the only one who can apply for patents. Once we get some breathing room and can relax a little here, I want to try out some ideas. Can you get me some soft pieces to work with? I want to make some thank you gifts for people and this is giving me all sorts of ideas. Ian leaned over and whispered something into Stace's ear. From Samuel's position he couldn't hear it, but from the way the older man flushed he could make some guesses. The way Ian seemed to be able to play Stace like that was cute. Sexy, too. Noticing a spare vise under a workbench, Samuel grabbed that and added it to the cart along with a couple hacksaws and some nice-looking scraps of shill metal. A sharp intake of breath drew his attention, and Samuel looked back to see that Ian was behind Stace, arms wrapped around him, teeth nibbling on the man's ear. Stace let out a whimper and tried to pull away, nervously looking over at Samuel. His words turned into a gasp as the Shilvati squeezed one of Stace's nipples through his shirt. Samuel grinned and dragged over a stool, plopping down facing the pair. It's all right, I don't mind. This could be a lot of fun. He's sensitive, isn't he? Ian grinned over at Samuel. He had been teasing Stace all day, a touch here, a grope there, and now it was time for the payoff. Samuel being there just added some more thrill to it. It was clear that being watched made Ian's lover perhaps a little uncomfortable, but Stace hadn't said no yet, and the added spice of observation seemed to only make the human more reactive to Ian's teasing fingers. Yeah, I love winding him up like this. The other day I tied him to the bed and spent a good hour just edging him. By the time he finally went off he came so hard I was afraid I'd have to call a skell in for emergency medical help. Ian pressed a finger to Stace's lips, then slid the digit inside. The human's tongue ran over the finger while Ian's other hand stroked his hair. That's the big problem with him. For being a man of few words, Stace can get way too talkative in the bedroom. He just needs to accept that I know what's best for him, right? Ian slipped another finger into Stace's mouth, feeling that unnaturally soft tongue, enjoying the gentle suction as the human's lips closed. He grabbed a handful of Stace's hair and squeezed tight, pulling at the roots, the moan coming from deep in the human's throat easily felt by the fingers in his mouth. I suppose that's one way to deal with the human stamina issue, Samuel replied, his voice husky. Just wear him out first, then fuck him. Ian could tell from the whimpers coming from his lover that being talked over and teased like this was turning him on big time. Samuel seemed to notice too and was obviously enjoying the conversation. Ian decided to tease a little harder. Yeah, as long as I don't wear him out too much. It's a balancing act. Stace is a lot less fun to fuck when he's too worn out to react properly. The fingers slipped free of Stace's mouth and Ian took the opportunity to use his saliva-slicked digits to wet Stace's thin shirt, the fabric clinging to the hard nipple underneath. Well, if you ever want some help with him, let me know. The lust in Samuel's voice immediately drew Ian's attention. He and Samuel didn't have that sort of relationship with each other, but the idea of sharing Stace with him certainly had promise. What do you say, Stace? Think you up for letting Samuel and me have our way with you? I don't know Samuel that well. Ian could feel the sexy discomfort starting to be overwhelmed by actual unsexy panic and replaced his teasing with a hug. That's okay, Stace. It's all right. We're just talking. You're safe. Samuel nodded. You're a sexy guy, but I'm not going to be into it unless you're 100% on board. Let's take some time to get to know each other and see how things go. Stace nodded, calming down a little but still shuddering into Ian's hug. The Shilvati leaned in close to whisper in Stace's ear. You're mine, Stace. Don't worry. I'm always going to take good care of you and keep you safe. It's okay. A clatter drew Ian's attention and he turned to see that Samuel was gone, the door to a storeroom open. This seemed to have the right effect, as Stace finally settled down. When Samuel's voice came from the storeroom, there wasn't any trace of the sexual energy that had once been there. Hey Stace, is there anything in here you want? Samuel stepped back into the machine shop holding a device that Ian couldn't recognize. It was a wooden box with a wide black disc and a bent metal arm on the top and a twisted brass horn sticking out of the side. Jesus, Samuel. I'm not that old. I had an MP3 player. That got a laugh from the small pale man. Well, roll over here and let's see what we can find you. The groan of quiet contentment seemed to slip from Stace of his own accord. He was lying on his back on the couch in his living room, his head in Ella's lap and his legs draped over Ieng's. The long, strong fingers of the Shilvati female were teasing his hair, rubbing gently along his scalp while Ella watched some sort of sporting event on the wall screen. Ieng's hand played idly across Stace's abdomen while the other was used to page through a book on his Omnipod. It was an idyllic moment and the man was finally able to unload some of that nervous energy that had been locked inside him all morning. The room had changed dramatically over the course of the day. A polite request to Dilek had loaned them a couple marines to move some boxes and now there were tools strewn all over the little room, including an antique sewing table that they had found in the storage room. Samuel didn't even know it had a sewing machine in it, which earned Stace some good-natured teasing about being an old man. He was feeling it, though. Maybe not physically, but... "I am really sorry about earlier," Ieng said quietly. "You should be inviting Stace to a threesome without me." Ella smirked, but Stace could hear the sharpness in her voice. She was trying to make light of things for his benefit. It's... Stace tried to put his words together, to make sense of the feelings in his head. "It's okay," Ella said softly, patting his head gently. "You don't have to say anything." "I do. I have to say something." Stace managed to put some firmness into his voice. He hated doing this. He hated talking about himself, explaining his feelings, but, as his therapist seemed to have no problem reminding him, that always just made the situation worse. You are. Stace sighed and tried to put the words together before he continued. "You know I'm not comfortable with people. They have always made me uneasy, but after being alone for so long it's worse. So much worse." He could feel the tears filling his mismatched eyes, running gently down his face. One of Ella's thumbs came to gently wipe them away. You don't feel like people." That got him confused glances and Stace managed to smile a little. "Being with the two of you feels like being alone." "No, not quite. It feels like being with me. You both have your own things going on. Others that you love. Other people who are a part of you. I am happy for you, I am glad you have that. But when I think about other people, even the people you love, I panic." Stace sniffed back his tears. "I don't know if I'll ever be normal." "Not really." "That's okay, Stace. You can be just the way you are and we'll both love you for it." Ieng's hands teased gently over his body, not stirring excitement but giving a sense of contentment. A feeling of connection. "But Stace swallowed. "I want to be like you too. I want to be able to have friends and enjoy time together. Ella's hands caressed his face, massaging gently. "If that's what you want, then that's what you'll have. We'll start you small. A little bit at a time." "Shit, I don't know. I'm getting old. Maybe too old." Ieng thought about it. "How old are you?" "I don't think I've ever actually asked." Stace snorted in amusement. "I turn 50 in 2 months." The agitated squawk from Ieng drew a chuckle from Stace. Ella leaned over to clarify. "That's human years. Call it 30 standard." Oh goddess, you nearly gave me a heart attack. I thought I was fucking someone old enough to be my great-grandfather." Ieng tried to slow his laboured breathing, which just made Stace laugh harder. "To be honest, though, you look awesome for 30. Ella's fingers wormed their way through Stace's short beard. "I would have put you maybe 10 years younger." "I feel awesome." "That's part of the problem, I think." Stace's laughter had ebbed and he was back to introspection. How would he explain the way he felt now, after what had been done to him? How so? It's hard. I can't feel me. Not on the inside, like I used to. No old aches, no twinges in the chest when I push myself too hard. It's all gone, but nothing replaced it. Instead of feeling old, I just feel nothing. My mind is sharper than it has been in a long time, skin is firmer, hell, my hair is darker, but that just makes it more noticeable. If I still felt all my years, I don't think I would notice everything that's missing. There was the guilt, too. Should he tell them about the guilt? Stas, you're hiding something. Ellera gently slapped the side of his face and he realized with a start that he had been zoning out a little. Let it out. It's like Aang said. I'm so much older than the both of you. I want to give you the rest of my life, but I'll be old and useless while you're still young. I don't want you burdened with me. Stace felt his two companions freeze up, look at each other. Finally, Ellera sighed. I guess it's time to tell you. Askel asked us to wait until you were more stable, but now that it's come up. Just tell me. Don't, dance around the issue. It's about your treatment. Stace nodded warily at Ellera, so she continued. No human has had such extensive reconstruction work. You're the first, kind of an experiment really. Keller's team basically put a gun to the doctors' heads and told them to fix you, no matter what. The Shilvati implants, the new hormones they produce, and the natural human durability seem to be interacting in an interesting way. Stace nodded grimly. Askel said 80 years before my organs need maintenance. How much longer do I really have? 10 years? 5? We honestly don't know. Judging by the way your body has been healing, it's impossible to say. Best guess is at least another 100 years, assuming you get your organ maintenance. Shilvati years. What? You're not just feeling younger, Stace. Your body is actively putting itself back together. It's not going to turn the clock back, and you don't have magic healing powers, but you'll be back to your old self, like you were before you went to the mountains. And you might stay that way for a long, long time. Stace started to shake, a feeling of wrongness flowing through him. He wasn't human anymore. He was something else. That panic was flowing through him in waves, but his family was there, hands gently stroking his hair and his face. He barely noticed Ellera picking him up, or the movement to the bed. His unnatural heart slowly began to slow down and Stace realized that he was wrapped up, Ellera's huge body curled protectively around him from behind, Aang holding him from the front. Gentle kisses were peppering his face. Calmness came quickly then. No matter what happened, he had his family. Aang's voice was soothing. Remember that we'll here for you. We'll get you used to being yourself and being with people, and if you get too stressed we'll snuggle you and Ellera will make tender sweet love to you and I'll fuck your brains out until you feel better. Aang smiled and Stace was filled with a sense of belonging. Just not tonight. Tonight I have to fuck Merin's brains out. Ellera let out a theatrical sigh. Don't worry, I'll take care of our boyfriend since you can't be bothered. Stace managed a small smile. I'm right here, you know. It looks like a fish skeleton. Like from a cartoon. Now that Sammy had seen it, they couldn't unsee it. Sammy was cuddled up with Sam, Aang, and Merin in the huge bed. Aang and Merin had scampered off to Aang's private room the night before, but had returned in the morning for some early hour cuddling. Sammy was happy to have them since something had really wound Samuel up the day before and again this morning. They were pleasantly sore and itchy all over while they looked at the Omnipod in Aang's hands. Great, now that's all I can see too. Aang flicked a finger on his pad, showing off other images of the ship. That's not how this style of ship looks most of the time, though. Here, this makes more sense. Sammy focused on the pictures, squeezing their legs together to help ease the ache there. The ship did resemble fish bones. There was a cockpit with a sleeper compartment, the head, a long central spine, and finally a cluster of engines, the tail. There were different models, some longer, some shorter, but they all shared the same long, thin spine. Ian changed the pictures and now the ship looked very different. Wide boxes were mounted around the spine. On some, the boxes were huge and stuck out on either side like a turtle shell. On others, the boxes were barely wider than the cockpit and gave the ship a long, eel-like appearance. You can attach different compartments to the spine depending on the application. Crew compartments, habitats, workspace. The spine is basically a long corridor connecting everything. Primarily it's used for hauling goods. You can load up a container, attach it to the spine, bring it to the destination, and then leave the entire container there. The crew never has to load or unload the container. In fact, the modular rooms on the hotel use the same standard mounting points. There's nothing stopping us from attaching some of those rooms to the ship to use as living space. So, it's a space truck. Sammy grinned. Dibs Dibs on Dennis Hopper. Fuck. Samuel beat them to the punch. Sammy threw an elbow into Samuel's ribs, but there wasn't any real energy in it. Sammy was too sore and they could still be Steven Dorff. A sad consolation prize. How big are we talking? There are various length options, but if we want one that can fit on one of our pads we can get this one here. The cargo spine is about 100 meters long between the cockpit and the engines. Ian flipped to some pictures of a specific used model. This particular one has been upgraded with a crew compartment that sleeps 3 females as well as bigger engines. Fully phase capable. Looks good. Sammy smiled. What are our other options? Ian flushed. This one's actually a really good deal. Samuel barked out a laugh. You already bought it. What? Sammy turned to look at the adorable Shilvati. He was blushing deeper, if possible, his lilac skin turning a beautiful blue. That's a lot of money. I ought to spank you. You signed off on it. Ian flipped though the pad and showed Sammy the paperwork. You know I don't read that stuff. Sammy. Calm down. You're forgetting the important thing. Samuel's hand grabbed a handful of Sammy's puff of hair, then turned their head to face him. We own a space ship. Holy shit. Sam was right. They owned a spaceship. An actual honest-to-goodness spaceship. Marion, grab your husband. He's still getting a spanking, but a celebratory spanking. Marion grinned, then looked over at Samuel. Sam, grab the rope. Sammy's husband made a salute and rolled off the bed, popping up and approaching their box o' rope at a run. Ian looked confused and a little scared. Wait, what? End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episode and do all the other YouTube stuff, visit and support the author, and I'll see you next time. If you didn't enjoy, comment on what I can do better. And as usual, have a wonderful day.